Controversial and outspoken. Embattled MP Craig Kelly is no stranger to the spotlight. But behind the scenes, it's his most trusted advisor, a man called Frank Zumbo, who's in the midst of a growing controversy.
If I was to go around and sack everyone that had any allegation against them, I'd be exposing the Commonwealth to a claim of unfair dismissal.
Media reports first emerged last year that New South Wales Police were investigating the 53-year-old former associate professor over allegations he harassed a young intern from Craig Kelly's office.
Listen to one.
When the Liberal backbencher quit the party 2 weeks ago, it was reportedly over 2 key issues with the Prime Minister: his promotion of COVID-19 conspiracy theories and his refusal to sack Frank Zumbo.
What about an ultimatum over how you've treated your staffer over allegations of harassment?
Well, Chris, that was another issue, but look, I believe this person's not elected, they're not an elected official. Every employee is entitled to the presumption of innocence.
He portrayed himself as like really well known, like this big political figure. So I was like, oh wow, maybe this is like a chance for me.
Oh, it hurts the most 'cause I don't know the cause.
Amara Bucknell loves performing in front of an audience. It's how the high school student caught the attention of political staff of Frank Zumbo in 2019, when their paths crossed at a local event in Sydney's Sutherland Shire.
There was a band singing and they found out that I was a singer, so they invited me to come join them to sing. And I sang a song with them, and Frank Zumbo came up to me and was like, "You're amazing," like introduced himself to me, said how amazing I was, and said he wanted to make me a star and said he wanted to meet my mum.
I can't believe that it's been going on for so long.
Yeah.
When Amara's mum Nicole met Zumbo that day, she says he immediately asked for her teenage daughter to intern at Craig Kelly's electorate office.
He said basically the same things that he did to Amara. And then he pulled me aside and also offered for Amara to work in the office. And I said, look, she's 16, she doesn't have any office experience. And he said, look, it would be great for her resume.
Amara says Zumbo then added her on Facebook and Instagram and started commenting on her photos.
Anything I'd post on my social media, he would reply with like the emoji with love heart eyes, which I thought was weird, but I just brushed it off until a couple weeks after that, he called me. He looked at my Instagram and he said, "I saw a photo of you at your formal, you looked absolutely beautiful, I love the dress." And I was just like, oh, thank you, like a bit uncomfortable, and he just kept saying how beautiful I am, how amazing I am. And
that's when you rang me straight away.
Yeah, and then naturally I called my mum straight away being like, is this weird? Like, he said all this stuff, and that's when she's like, right, that's extremely weird.
Nicole says she cut contact between her then 16-year-old daughter and Frank Zumbo at the end of 2019. Within months, his name was splashed across the local newspaper over his alleged conduct towards another teenage girl. An apprehended violence order has banned him from contacting the girl. Zumbo strongly denies the allegations and says no charges have been brought.
That kind of freaked me out a little bit, actually.
Have you ever made a police complaint?
So I rang Sutherland Police Station and I told them that nothing had actually happened to my daughter, but I was concerned there was a pattern there of grooming.
730 understands at least 6 other women have made police statements alleging Zumbo behaved inappropriately towards them. Anna Hobson is one of them.
He was strange and uncomfortable and temperamental in so many different ways that, like, it shouldn't come as a surprise to me or to anyone really that there was an AVO brought against him. In hindsight, I'm probably surprised it took as long as it did.
Anna was in year 11 when Frank Zumbo offered her a paid internship at Craig Kelly's office in 2018. She says her colleagues were all high school or university-aged girls, managed directly by Zumbo.
The whole office was basically run by the girls. Frank would call all of us sisters, so all the girls that worked in the office were either junior sisters or senior sisters. It's funny, often there were as many girls in school uniforms in like a federal office as there were people in like office clothing.
Anna says Zumbo's behaviour towards her over the 9-month internship often made her feel uncomfortable.
He set the culture and he made it very normal, and it was my first office job, my first male boss, so I didn't really question it in the way I now would with hindsight.
And you say he set the culture. What was that culture?
You'd enter and leave through the back doors, and you'd always have to hug him and give him a kiss on the cheek when you came and when you left. Things like having one-on-one personal conversations in the conference room with the door shut. Personal outings together, that kind of thing.
Anna says Zumbo was insistent about taking her out alone for a day trip. When the then 16-year-old finally relented, she claims he touched her leg inappropriately.
We differed in our politics, so he took me to like what he called the lefty belt, all these places in the inner city, and took me to a few different markets. He was relatively insistent in wanting to buy me clothes, which I rejected throughout the whole day. I let him buy me books instead. And when we were in the car, he like put his hand on my leg while making a joke, and it was just it was the moment I was like very, very conscious of I'm alone in a car with a man I know can be temperamental, and he could drive me anywhere or do anything and has all the power.
He had a really physical style of showing affection. I felt it was an expectation that I'd give him a kiss on the cheek every time we met, and he'd want to hug me. And on one occasion when we were driving home, he reached over and put his hand on my thigh and kind of gave it a shake. And I said to him, you know, why did you just put your hand on my leg? That feels kind of weird and creepy. And he said, oh, I don't think it's weird and creepy. Like that, I'm Italian. This is how we show affection.
Philippa Clark was 18 when Frank Zumbo offered to mentor her during the 2014 state election, even though she was running as a Greens candidate.
I was a bit suspicious, obviously. He was a right-wing Liberal staff member, and he told me that he was factionally opposed to the moderate Liberals who I was running against at the time. It sometimes felt like a bit of a deal with the devil, because he also just made me feel uncomfortable personally.
Philippa recently made a statement to police.
I made the choice to work with him, but I'm speaking up about it now because I don't want other women to have to normalise that kind of behaviour like I did.
Frank Zumbo declined 7:30's requests for an interview, including outside Craig Kelly's office this morning.
Frank Zumbo, Grace Tobin from ABC 7:30. Can we talk to you for a second?
Through his lawyer, he strongly denied the allegations, describing them as fanciful, misleading, or otherwise without merit. Craig Kelly says he had no knowledge of the allegations until they were printed in the media last year and again more recently.
Craig Kelly's account is at odds with some of his former staff. 7:30 has spoken with 6 former employees who claim the MP has been well aware of concerns about Frank Zumbo's alleged inappropriate behaviour for 8 years now.
You've heard of this for a long time.
Fran, the allegations that were made in the Guardian piece last week, they're the first that I've heard of anything of those allegations.
He's bringing through these young girls, and his body language around them and the way he talks to them is just not appropriate. And it's just not something that should be happening in an MP's office.
Matt Burnett is a crane operator these days, but back in 2013 he was working as a junior media advisor for Craig Kelly in the lead-up to the federal election. He says even then, he and his colleagues were unnerved by the high volume of young female interns Zumbo was bringing through.
He would use like the spare meeting room. He would take them in there and keep that door like closed and separate to the rest of us. I just thought that was strange.
Liberal Party members have also had concerns about Frank Zumbo for years. An email sent in 2018 between Liberal moderates condemns the treatment of young women in Craig Kelly's office over the last 6 years, which was made aware to all from the Prime Minister down.
I do think there is a problem in Parliament and in our federal politics more broadly around a culture of entitlement and I would say toxic masculinity. Each time allegations and complaints are made, they're not appropriately dealt with. We don't see systemic change and we don't see a real taking of accountability by leadership, and that needs to change.
This Parliament has the opportunity to provide the roadmap.
As a fellow crossbencher of Craig Kelly's, independent MP Zali Steggall recently warned her own staff to steer clear of Frank Zumbo.
I raised the issue of Mr Zumbo and the allegations that have been made in respect to him with my staff and gave my staff I guess a directive in that I don't wish for them to have any individual dealings with him, and that if there needs to be dealings with Mr Kelly's office, that it be through me.
The Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison recently revealed his long-held concerns about Craig Kelly's employment of Frank Zumbo.
There is the long-held concerns that I've had about the performance of a staff member in the member for Hughes's office. They relate to performance measures that don't relate to the more sensitive issues that have come up more recently.
The Department of Finance is now investigating Frank Zumbo and the accusations of harassment in Craig Kelly's office.
If coming forward and humanising a story and bringing a face to it will help bring change, then I'm happy to do that.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.